And I was there, man.
I was there.
And I was there.
I was there, man.
But baby, I was there, man.
I'm in the show. Everyone can see and hear me.
How you doing, brother?
Good, you?
Excellent, man. Look at us. We both got some sun, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Month in Mexico.
Nice, dude. Nice. Wicked. Yeah. Well, you're back, dude. This has been a while. The show took a bit of a hiatus while you were away, a little bit of a step back. We did a couple live, so.
I don't know. We're planning on things. We're doing things. I don't know if it's all negative, yeah.
No, not negative at all, man. And you said we got, we do have a few things that we talked about pivoting the show.
Yeah.
A little bit, which is kind of leading into today's episode, right? So we thought, as I wrote in the description, folks, we think we're going to pivot the show a little bit to more focus on the Toronto music scene, at least as a story arc for the next little while, which does a couple things for us, man. I've always been fascinated with the Toronto scene, born and raised here in Toronto, played in the scene. Dave was here for years, lived here for many years, came out for radio school, which is where we met. And him and I participated in the scene as fanboys, saw many concerts together, everything from divey clubs to mega venues to sold-out C&Es, which is one of the things we were going to talk about today, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think it makes sense for us to do this. We've got a lot of contacts in the Toronto music scene, and I think we seem to be in the orbit of a lot of Toronto online things that have launched, whether it's the Blast Toronto or other people that are doing things at JoJo, right?
Shout
So
out
people
to
that are doing things that are promoting the Toronto scene, and then seeing people like Lou Pamonte share his experience, and there's people that I've worked with I worked with some heavy cats when I was in the Toronto recording studio.
We've already had Doug McClement on the show already. Someone else we both got to cross paths with professionally.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I listened to Lou Pamonte talk the other day, and I don't know him really personally. I think I maybe sort of worked with him a couple times. I was only a chump assistant.
That was a big ass studio. There was multiple rooms.
Yeah, he did a lot of work at another studio in the building. But it's cool. I listened to him. He was talking about working with Leonard Cohen, and so a couple Toronto guys there, and not Toronto guys, a Montreal guy and a Toronto guy. So it was kind of cool though, but to see the people that are in Toronto that are, and for us to go back and look in the rear view before we were really aware, like Yorkville, before we were even born, and then to go through, right?
Someone else, I was just thinking along the work tip that you had crossed paths with, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Jordan, right? And Amy, didn't you? Did you touch base or set up studios?
I worked
or something?
with. I was lucky enough to work with both Mark Jordan and Amy Sky.
There you go.
And Mark was really cool. He actually, when I left Toronto, he wrote a reference letter for me, which was amazing. I don't, looking back on it, it was like way above and beyond. He didn't have to.
Certainly did.
Yeah, but Mark's a really cool cat, and it was funny that it connects like. Lou Pamonte was talking about Mark, so it reminded me of Mark, and then was working with my friend Richard on that project, and Richard will forever be faceless on this show. He'll never come on, even though he knows a bunch of people. He's not an internet face guy.
But the show has touched base with that connection. Revisit that for the folks, man. What was our connection there? You worked on remixing on a mix, right? Was for Molly, wasn't it? Molly's record.
Yeah, it wasn't a remix. I worked with.
It was a mix.
It was just the mix. It was the mix. Yeah, they recorded, they tracked the album. Richard tracked the album with Steve McKinnon as producer in Steve's house, and I never did go. I should have gone.
But you got
whatever. But
back,
the mix, they came back
when it came back to studio.
Yeah, they came back to the studio with the multi-tracks, and we mixed it there, and that was her self-titled album. It wasn't, I think it might have been her solo debut.
And her record's releasing in June, man. I just saw the ads pop up on Facebook. The next one's coming out in like 3 weeks. So these are more threads that we now, because you and I discussed, we want to go try to talk to Lou. We want to try to talk to Mark. We definitely want to try to talk to Molly. And that ties back into what we've already done. This is why I love putting the bows on these things, is we had Gordie Johnson from Big Sugar on the show, who wrote one of those tracks that Molly
Yeah.
recorded and you helped mix on. So there you go.
100 cigarettes. Yeah. Yeah. Really
Full
cool
circle.
stuff. So yeah, there's those threads, and the idea behind it is that we have enough connections, and we've got enough knowledge about it to really explore the Toronto scene. Because one of the things where we met at Radio College, we had a guy who was our I forget what Keith taught us. It might have been production, I believe.
It
He was
was production. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was an old school radio DJ, and he started off in Aurelia, but then he wound up working at CFNY back when CFNY was really weird, which was great. And CFNY was, an alternative station before the '90s, before alternative was a thing. When everything was either classic rock or, AOR kind of, Carole King kind of stuff, I guess,
absolutely.
right?
Early to mid '80s, they were the only people in Toronto that you could hear that kind
Yeah,
of.
and I don't know if you remember, so you and I went and worked with Keith, and so that's where you got an opportunity to work with Jeff Healy, another Toronto connection.
There you go.
And we did syndicated radio shows, but Keith told, I don't know if you remember this story or not, but Keith told us a story where he had the opportunity to interview Frank Zappa, and it was in the 70s or 80s. Keith was on the air. It must have been the 80s, I guess. I'd have to look up when Frank passed away. I don't remember. I apologize.
Yeah, late '80s, or I think 1990.
When he was on the air, yeah. So he would have been
When he
early to
passed.
mid-80s.
When he passed, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been early to mid '80s when Keith did the thing, and it was funny because Keith was he was experimental, and he thought, oh, Frank Zappa is going to be great. I'll go and I'll do some hallucinogens. So he decided it was totally par for the course for radio DJs to do acid and do the show. And so he did it with Frank Zappa, but he got too high, and Frank Zappa wasn't a drug guy. Keith didn't do his research.
No, he's a teetotaler.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he didn't do his research. So Frank was thoroughly unimpressed by the fact that this DJ was blasted out of his mind on LSD, to the point where Frank Zappa had to tell Keith what buttons to push to hit the commercials or the songs to go on the air. So he tells us the story. It was kind of an embarrassing thing, maybe potentially, but he was there, man. He was there in the studio with Zappa.
I don't
wild.
remember that anecdote, man.
I do, because it was the thing of he thought, it'll be cool. We'll do acid together, and
the don't eat the yellow snow guy must be doing some kind of drugs. Yeah.
I don't do drugs. Yeah, the Jam at Joe's Garage guy. Yeah.
That's funny. Great
Pretty
story,
funny, yeah.
brother.
So those are some good Toronto stories, and then Yorkville is a fascinating spot because it's well before our time, but that's where Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, Neil Young, they all cruise through that space, and these are artists that have gone on to influence the world of rock and roll and folk since the 60s. There you go. Look at that. Very good. Slide in there.
Well, where I wanted to start these conversations was right back here, man. So this was going to be, I know we jumped in with Yorkville, but it was great timing because, just to finish up the Yorkville angle, Kathy Young, go check out her Instagram account today. She put up a photo of her backstage somewhere at some party. And it says where the show is or where she is. And she's with a couple music legends back in 1974, man.
Dave Mason, we just disagree.
Thank you, brother. Please. Embarrassing. So she got a great photo of her standing backstage. She looks amazing.
Yeah.
Mid-70s. Great shot. Or her hanging with a couple legends. Who we just lost. We just lost him this year, actually. Sadly. Dave Mason. Anyway, the Coq d'Or. Famous for not just being a huge music venue.
Yeah, Starvin' Marvin's right next to it. That's cool.
There you go. I didn't even realize that until I zoomed in. This is when Yonge Street was still a little sketchy.
I just realized it's not like a hot dog place; it's a strip joint. Hilarious.
Yeah, there you go. A peep show, probably a peep show back in those days. This is Toronto the Good, remember? So, judging by the bell bottoms there, I'm thinking 74, 75, 76. Cool name. The Soul Dukes, great name for a band. But famous for, potentially, and we got to go confirm this is probably Googleable, Probably should have done our research before we got here, but Bo Diddley may have been part owner of this place, man. So it's something someone else floated. No shit. I gotta go look that up.
Really? Well, I don't know.
Well, you're there, yeah. You do a little Google. I had to do a little chat GPT on that, man. Bo Diddley may have had a ownership here. I know that Ronnie Hawkins was the house band. Rompin' Ronnie Hawkins, rockabilly legend from Arkansas, came to Toronto, stayed here, was probably one of the biggest act to play Yonge Street back in those days, arguably, with a regular gig every weekend, and put together a band called The Hawks behind him, which we all know is Levon Helm, Robbie Robertson, Danko, Richard Manuel, who went on to become the band, back up Dylan, and to have their own illustrious, amazing career. It all started there. And then I found out that after a number of years, Ronnie, as the band took off and did their things, Ronnie was so popular, he got an all-ages gig upstairs at the Hawk's Nest. So they opened up a secondary bar for him just to play in. Man, that was his full-time bar.
Cool.
So I grew up with amazing stories. That was my parents' watering hole. They said every night ended in a brawl. It was just the sign of the time. When you went drinking in the 60s in Toronto, there was fights in the bars. It was just the way it is. You had to have real doormen because people were getting out of hand. And so that's where one of the first places I used to hear about all the time, man, the famous Cock Door Tavern here in Toronto, which started my fascination with the Toronto music scene.
There you go. There you go. See if I can. Now, can I upload anything here? Present.
See if you can.
Slide.
Oh, look at that.
There you go. Speedy quick.
Bo Diddley and his band at the Hawk's Nest above the Cock Door, a major influence on many rock groups in the 60s. Diddley widely used Bo Diddley beat above the Hawk's Nest. Ronnie Hawkins had a lavish private space.
Ronnie Hawkins, like a boxing ring.
Boxing ring. Hey, if they're gonna fight, you might as well go do it in there. Settle your differences in there. That is cool.
No, he didn't own it, so I looked it up using my little Claude AI thing. He was among the musicians who performed there.
There you go.
But that picture is from January 29th, 1965.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the tavern was owned by the Bulukan family. Businessman George Bulukan opened it in the late 40s on Yonge Street in Toronto between Queen and Gerrard.
Yeah, there you go, man.
But that was so it's interesting. So we go from there to and this is what kind of what we're thinking that the I Was There Man will track and this this is a what do you call it? Brainstorming as we go, because if we go from places like the Cock Door to Yorkville to Queen West, and it was another interesting thing. We really should find Elshaw because he was a wealth of knowledge around Queen West in the 80s, because when we were there in the 90s,
yeah,
it was the place to be. And it's hard to imagine anywhere being as cool as Queen West in Toronto in that time, because it was like an amalgam. It was so much live music going on, so many clubs happening, that it wasn't our answer to the Seattle scene, because we tailed the Seattle scene a little bit, but we were pretty active. But I know in the 80s it was Queen Street West was Carling Black Label. I remember Elshaw used to tell us about that, right? Where it was, you were cool if you drank Black Label. And he said, I remember him saying there was billboards all up and down Queen West. And there was City TV was there, just preceding Much Music with Speaker's Corner, uniquely Toronto things that happened. And it's interesting because I spent some time in Manhattan, and there are parallels between Toronto and New York City, and then Toronto and the Seattle scene, in terms of the musicality. And there's other groups, sort of just jumping around, but this is why we want to do this, is to kind of bring it together in one space. Because there was another guy, Joey Vendetta, we've spoken of him in the past. We both would love to chat with him, because when we were in radio, he was the music director at Q107, the classic rock station. So we had a huge impact on the local music scene and that was the tail end. So that went so in my mind, not my mind, in the era. So the 60s was Yorkville, with all the hippies going down to Yorkville with like we just mentioned earlier, the Neil Youngs of the world and Joni Mitchells of the world and Leonard Cohen's. And then the 70s were kind of, an abomination musically. It'd be interesting to find out what happened in Toronto.
I know exactly what happened in Toronto. That's why I wanted to hop in there, man. So, our kick at the can in the late 80s, early 90s, because it started a little bit before you and I turned 19 on Queen West, was the second run of Queen Street. There was already a run of Queen Street in the late 70s. That was the punk rock scene in Toronto. That's the famous Last Pogo at the Horseshoe was 79. And
that was what Elsha used to talk about, right?
And that was the end. That marked the end of the punk rock era. So Queen's main scene was the punk rock thing from, say, 77 till, like, 82. But mentally, and the only thing that's left there is the Peter Pan is still standing there, man. I saw it a few months ago, dude. The owner never sold out, and he's never given in. He's still hanging on, barely. But that was the place that all the punkers went to go drink after their shows, right? So, and the punks moved in because Queen West was kind of downhill in the 70s. It was a bad, kind of sketchy, kind of ish part of town, man. And they took it over. And that was the first cool run of Queen West. Our wave that came along in 1990 was kind of moved back in. The kind of punks, if you will, took it back over, although we were dressed a little differently. We didn't have as many pins and holes in ourselves as they did, I guess. Although we did the body piercing.
I don't know, man. I did.
The body piercings did come. I wanted to hop in there and just interject. There was a scene there for us, a music scene.
Yeah, and remember Lori Yates talked about, she brought something up that was really fun that I didn't know about, literally the Cowboy Junkies. So there was that scene on Queen West of the country music artists coming.
Early 80s.
Katie Lang
early
was,
80s now, yes.
Katie Lang coming in and kicking all their asses from Alberta, but up until then it was, there was this whole country cowboy scene, but they got somehow connected with heroin, and that's something else that I wanted to
the late great Handsome Ned, dude. I keep getting photos sent to me regularly. We have to pull a Handsome Ned thread, man. We have to.
Yeah, and then the band, right? The Cowboy Junkies came out, and they were clearly influenced by that. But a lot of those artists that did stuff in the 90s that were impactful in the 90s, I don't see why I wouldn't be able to, like you say, pull a thread and get a hold of them, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Speaking of into the 80s and 90s, here's another joint. Going back to Yonge Street. 80s.
Because Yonge was rock and roll heaven in the Gasworks. And I was the first.
Gasworks, dude.
The first night you and I went out together in 91, it would have been 91, we got turned away at Rock and Roll Heaven because we didn't buy tickets. Because it was one of the last.
It was the last night. Slick Toxic
was the last night, right? Yeah. But I'd been there before with other people. But when you and I went, it was the last closing day of Rock and Roll Heaven, which was a huge club. And rock and rollers from all over the world played there.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was in such a goofy place. For those that don't know, it was in like an office tower connected to a subway, literally a train, the TTC train subway station. And you got out, and there was this hardcore heavy metal rock and roll long-haired club
in the basement of an office building. Yeah,
and the office building had Q107 upstairs, the rock station, and AM 640, the Hog, right, the AM news station at the time.
Cam touched on this, right? That the artists could play and then go do an interview.
Yeah, and then so we went, and we got turned away from there, and then. I don't know if we went to the Gasworks that night, but we proceeded to go to the Bovine.
The Bovine.
Which you'd heard about as being the cool place to go. It's called the Bovine Sex Club.
I'm still following Daryl. So yeah, Daryl, shout out to Daryl.
And we showed up, and the bouncer looked at us and went, "Yeah, we're closed."
Private party, I believe.
Private party. We said, "What do you mean private party?" And then these three really hot young women pulled in behind us, like, "Oh yeah, get out of the way, you three, come on in." Realized it wasn't a private; it was a private party for us. We
No,
were
yeah,
excluded.
we weren't cool enough yet.
We weren't cool enough. But then, and that was the first night we went and found the Boom Boom Room,
The Boom
and
Boom
realized, yeah, you can have the bovine. I want the Boom Boom Room.
Even rock and roll heaven, man. We found our home. Was the Boom Boom.
Yeah. It was a wild thing, and I remember at the time we reflected, this is a changing of the guard. This is going from Motley Crue to Nirvana on a very grassroots level. The nightclubs have shifted from the '80s hair guys,
from hair bands to
generation.
Nirvana happened like that.
Soundgarden. It was wild, and being there, and I remember at the time thinking, wow, Kurt is this, second coming, and it's an interesting thing because I remember the same guy, Keith Elshaw, calling bullshit. He's like, yeah, they're calling him the Beatles. He's not the goddamn Nirvana's not the goddamn Beatles. No, nobody's the Beatles. Period. End of discussion. But was he influential in that generation? Yeah, undeniably. Yeah. But the problem with him is that he died so young and in such a short run that what was his influence? His influence wasn't as broad as it could have been. That's for sure. No, it was really unfortunate, and we didn't know that at the time. But yeah,
I gotta tell you though, man, I've complimented because I'm busking out on the streets, pretty busy. People are out in their shirts now too. The weather broke here in Toronto. I saw 3 Nirvana shirts this week, man. So they're still selling merch to kids.
They sell them, and but you don't have to look for them anymore. Like there was a time when like that
they're at Walmart.
They're at Walmart and Target.
But the head shop beside the gasworks.
Dude, so I grew up in Edmonton, right? And I used to go to West Edmonton Mall when I was a teenager. And so the arcades is where you bought your hash. And they had everything in West Edmonton Mall, from Abercrombie and Fitch to a skating rink where the Oilers would practice at occasionally, to the roller coaster inside, to like seeing mammals that were performing. It was like the goofiest thing, but whatever. It was this massive place. And I remember going into Abercrombie and Fitch and like just checking it out. And they would have, they'd have these shirts. And I bought this shirt. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was one of those ones with a shotgun patch on it, right? So it was a red flannel button-up shirt with this like suede shotgun, like as if I ever had a shotgun, right? But it was preppy beyond preppy, right? And I was wanting, the shirts that were, if it's too loud, you're too fucking old shirts, better a blowjob than no job, all those things. And so I went into this Abercrombie and Fitch at the time, and it's like literally white Oxford button-down shirts, preppy, feathered hair, the whole pink, all that horse shit, right? Stuff I hated, other than the cool shotgun shirt. And just recently, I'm in Vancouver, and I'm talking like 3 months ago, I was at a mall downtown. They had an Abercrombie and Fitch. So I was looking for a shirt for my son. So I went in. What do they have hanging on the walls at Abercrombie and Fitch? A Metallica shirt. So that's why those kids are wearing Nirvana shirts. I guarantee you they have no idea who Nirvana is.
Oh, you could do the old name me 3 songs. Name me 3 songs, man.
You know what? I could care less as long as their kids make the money. Their estate. As long as Kurt's estate makes the money, good for them. Like I don't buy any of that sellout bullshit. But it's a funny thing because there was a time, and this is kind of the premise of the whole show. Literally, the premise of the entire I Was There Man is the connection around music, and to see where it's gotten to the point where, it's arguably that there's very, I don't know, the music scene is very different than it used to be. There's no money to be made by most musicians anymore in the industry, certainly not like they used to be able to. I'm sure Dave Grohl makes a ton of cash, but the new Nirvana that's coming up is making next to nothing. They're playing free on TikTok, Yeah. Fascinating.
It is, dude.
So Toronto, this is kind of what we're thinking, right? Is we're thinking of digging a little deeper, and it might take us a couple weeks to figure out the format and figure out how we're going to do it, but
yeah,
I think there's something here, right?
Yeah, we figure we can pull from fans, industry insiders that we know, the musicians that partook and played and created that scene.
Yep.
The businessmen behind some of it, because some of them are still around. And there may be, hint, hint, some funding opportunities to go pick a path that takes us down the Toronto path. Because as much as we love bringing this stuff to you people, as it is a passion project for us, it'd be nice to get paid and actually turn this into a job, man, and make some money off this thing. Why not? So that's where we think the show's going to pivot for the next little bit, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.